just a good old boy.
Okay, so I got the feed fork timed on this thing down there, and then I timed checked the spacing between the fork and the plunger, which is also another timing part, to check for that. And then we did the knotters. I got the knotters timed. The way you do the knotters is you cycle the tie. Basically, you put it in the tie, you spin the flywheel till your needles come up. Once your needles come up, right there at the bottom of the plunger, where the knives meet the plunger part of steel, which is not at the bottom of the knives, but basically at the top of the knives on the plunger, you measure the distance between the front face of the plunger, not the knife, and the tip of the needles. And I think it's 1.5 to 2 1/4 or something like that spacing that is supposed to be to have the knotters in time. Now they were out of time. The way you adjust the knotters is you take the chain off or loosen it all the way up to where you can move it freely on the sprocket. You make sure that the stop is up against the roller in there on that sprocket, and then you have somebody turn the flywheel while you watch over here till the plunger is where it's supposed to be. Then you put the chain back on, and you have to tension the chain to make sure that nothing moves while you're tensioning the chain. Then you have to complete the cycle, recycle it, and then check it and see if it's in time. So that's the way you done that. I made a whole video series on the 1837 that we had how to do that, and you can look it up. I think there's a playlist for all that stuff I did with it. I'm working on the knotters right now. I said that I was going to leave them alone, but they're irritating me, so I like them perfect, and it's irritating me, so I'm up here working on these knotters. And this baler is basically this will be its 3rd season. It has about a 1.5 seasons worth of use on it. The disc were out of time with the twine holders, so I'm having to adjust those. I haven't checked the bill hooks or anything, but I would assume they're probably fine, but I will do a quick check on those. I'm not anticipating having to do anything with those because this thing is tied fine, but these twine discs were a little bit off. They're a little bit too advanced, so I had to retard them a little bit and move them back. And now the way you do that is you loosen these nuts up right here, which this one's loose. I've got it set, so I don't really want to loosen it off. I just need to tighten it. You loosen this nut right here, then you take a small hammer or something, and you loosen that nut up enough where that bolt's not sticking out. You tap that bolt, and these bolts that runs down through here are tapered onto these gears, and that will loosen this gear up. And then you turn this one to where it needs to be, and then you turn this one so it's snug up against this one where it's supposed to be. You always want this twisted as far as it can to the left, so that because that's the direction of pull, and then it will keep that gap set right. So then you just bump that up again there with that twisted all the way the left side bumping against, and then you tighten it back down, and then your gap should be like that, and it should be right. Now I've always made these cleaners. I didn't do it today. I just put it even because that's the way this book says to do it, but I've always liked to have these cleaners protruding a little bit right here. Not much, but a little bit. That's just the way I've always liked them done, where they're a little bit, just a tad advanced, but not much. But I said them the way the book said to do it today, so that's technically the way they're supposed to look. This little moon disc, I call them. The leading edge is supposed to be with all the slack out even with that. It's a little bit shy there. They're not bad. So I'm probably going to leave them alone. They're about a eighth of, well, I'd say more than that. They're probably about 3/16 from where they should be, but they're close enough where it's going to work fine. Now there's a check when you run, you're supposed to run the needles up through here, and they're supposed to be sticking up about this high, and then these will pull in to grab the twine, and you measure the gap between the back of these moon discs, and there's a spacing there, and the way you adjust that is there's 2 bolts right here that this whole unit slides on, and then that's how you adjust the gap distancing between there and the needles. Now another adjustment that there is on these, which this thing here is backed out for some reason, it's not supposed to be, that needs tightening. I don't know why those are loose, because I've never worked on those. But the way you adjust these is you take this end loose out here, and you loosen this lock nut up, and then you spin that little eyelet right there on the end of that, and it will set the in and out of this. So that's how that works. It could probably use a little bit of adjustment, but and when you check it, you want to push all the way forward to get all the slack out of it, because these things do have a little bit of travel in them. And check it. It's not much off. I'm just going to leave it alone. It's not enough to really need adjusting yet. Again, this thing's fairly new, so it's not too awful bad needing adjustment on stuff yet. By the end of this year, though, it'll need everything gone through. About ever. I don't know, I ain't gonna say. Cause you really need to check it every year, so depending on how much hay you're baling. It's due for full service through the whole thing, but I'm gonna try to get through this year with it like it is. I need to pull the plunger out and check the rollers and everything, make sure they're all fine. I would think they are, being it's only, which it's had a decent amount of hay run through it. It's only, what is it? Oh, it'll be, this baler will be 2. Let's see, we got it spring of, or no, we got summer of 2019. Last year's summer, it would have been 1, so this year's summer, it'll be 2. 2 years that we've had it. So it's got half a season, a full season, well, really only half, because we didn't get to bale half the hay we did normally do last year because of all the rain. So really 1 full season through it, what normal is. And then at the end of this year, maybe halfway through after first cut, I may go fully through this thing and just check everything. I probably ain't going to be pulling the plunger out, but I'm going to go check all the knife spacings and probably sharpen them. I do have one knife, as I showed y'all, it's got that nick in it that needs to be replaced. The biggest thing I have issues with this baler, or have had issues with these inlines, is losing these hay dog bushings, which they're cheap. They're not hard, they're quick and easy to replace, but they come off. There's nothing really to, other than a tapered piece of metal that they bounce up again and it's fit down into that rubber that holds them on, and that's it. Once those come off, you'll start hearing it pop. So if you've got an inline and when you're baling with it, it's going pop, 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 pop whenever you're baling. My baler, the first inline we had, it did it, and I put those on it and it completely quit. But I've heard, especially 1837s, I don't know how many videos making that sound, pop, 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 and people don't even know to check for those hay dog bushings. And what it is that hay dog metal or steel tip on it that holds that bushing on, pinging off the side of the bale chamber as those dogs move in and out. Another thing I have already had happen to this baler once was one of the hay dog springs broke. I had to put a hay dog spring in it. So really that's it. That's the only 2 issues that we've had with it as of yet, is I had 2 bushings come off and I had 1 hay dog spring break. So that's pretty well, I think the only things we've had breakdowns or happened to it that I had to spend money on. Other than that, the only other thing that I've got ordered to go on it is twine knives, which it shouldn't have anything wrong with it. It's new. But even new equipment will have a thing here or there that'll go bad just because of manufacturing or something like that. So it's generally something small, like the new round baler we just bought. The gauge is leaking on it, so I'm getting a new gauge through warranty to go on it. It's supposed to be here 3 days. Yeah, I think it was 3 days that it was supposed to be here, which I'm shocked. Everything else I've ordered this year that was a part and I had to order it has taken 2 weeks or longer just to get from any of the manufacturers. So it's been an adventure. Most of the time it's been a month for stupid. I mean, if it's something really simple and it's not that complex, like a pen or something you need that they keep for general stock, that's the stuff that has been the hardest to get for some reason. It's been like a month before you get it, like tank ports to go in sprayers. It takes a month to get those, but is what I've been running into. I got a new latch ordered. That was another thing. This little latch broke. I got a new one of those. I got to go get it. It's in and different things. I kind of rigged that one up to work, but it bounces loose and comes undone the way I had to do it. But if you've made it this far in this video, thank you so much. But there's something I've been wanting to talk about a little bit. I'm working on this pump for this hay preservative applicator. I'm washing it out and making sure everything's functioning, so that way if we need it I can just fill this tank up and go. One thing I wanted to talk about though was this hay preservative applicator thing. It stirred my attention while I was out here working on this thing, and I remembered I wanted to say something about this. Everybody asks me all the time in messages, what is the tip size on this hay preservative applicator from when I built this thing from scratch? And I said in the video, and I'm going to say it again. The tip size is in the book that you get off of somebody to copy your design off of to build one of these things at home. The tips are not, let me repeat this, are not the same tips that a sprayer uses. They are a very special fine tip. You cannot buy these tips anywhere, or just anywhere. They're not common. They are a threaded tip, and you have to try to find these caps. I found these caps off of Amazon. That was the only place I could even possibly get anything to make this work. These caps are basically to imitate what a normal little sprayer tip cap would be, but it's made out of brass and it's threaded, so you can put these threaded tips up in here into it. These are a special made tip only for hay preservative applicators. They are so fine that you cannot even hardly see any light through the other side. You can't just get those anywhere. I tried running regular sprayer tips in these, even down to the smallest size I could possibly buy. I think they were like orange or pink or something like that at the regular store, and it was still too much volume. These things basically make a mist of this stuff when it comes out, and everybody says, well, what size tip are you using? It doesn't matter what size tip I'm using, because you have to change the tips or the pressure to the preservative applicator by the charts that you have that off of what you built the applicator off of. You have to get the charts off of somebody who has a preservative applicator already, and that you can copy that stuff off of. I'm not giving everybody the charts. I have my reasons for doing that. If you've got a friend that's got one of these, or you know somebody, or if you know somebody that owns the dealership really good that sells these, maybe they can print you off a copy of them, and then you can order the tips you need from the company that applicator came from, and you can build the rest of it. That's the thing. This thing came with the design I went by came with 3 different size tips, and depending on how much product I need to put down, you have to have a different tip. And the other thing is I know a lot of people think, well, I'll just go to Tractor Supply, which is what I thought, and just get the smallest tip I can find, or just get a general tip, and then if it looks like it's getting a decent amount down there, that's good enough. Well, this stuff don't take hardly nothing, and it's very expensive if you put just a little bit too much. And when you're adjusting this thing, it's not, oh well, I need to move it 5 or 10 psi. It's down to 1 psi is the difference, and you making money and wasting and spending a crap load of money on wasted product and putting way too much. You have to have the calculation charts to do this, and if you have the calculation charts, you won't be asking me what tips I have. And that's the thing with this, is you have to have those charts, because you've got to weigh that bale. You have to calculate, and it tells you how to calculate how much hay you're pumping through that baler and the rate at which it's pumping it through to get the correct flow amount coming out of that thing. This stuff is not cheap. It figures that even if you're doing it right, I think it's 50 cents a bale, or a quarter to 50 cents a bale is what, I can't remember now. I have to go back and refigure it up. I told last year at the end of the year how much it was. It's something like that a bale just to put this stuff on, and it's worth it if you can't bale, and it's either the hay gets wet and it's going to run and you're going to lose your whole hay field, or if you just need to get the hay up and the weather's been crappy and you need to get it off, it's worth it then, because you can keep going and keep making hay. But in any just general use, I don't use the thing. It's rare I ever use it, but if I need it, like last year, I'll use it. But that's why I do not give the information, because you need the books to get your flow right in order to even need the tip size. And quite honestly, I don't know what degree these tips are. They don't. I've looked. Somebody asked me just the other day, and I got the package that they came in, and I went back and looked, and they tell nowhere on them what degree size these tips are. I've looked at everything on these tips, and I even took the numbers off and tried to find them somewhere else, and I couldn't find them. They're a specialty tip, and I cannot stress to you how small that little pin size hole is. It's basically the size of a pinhole is all it is. And I'm telling you this from experience, because I tried it. I went and bought the smallest tips I could find, and I put them in there, and I thought, well, this is what I'm doing. I used to know, I can't remember who did this, and they had gotten so far with it and quit. And I told in the original series who it was that I seen, because I was just searching for it and seen that they had done it. It was somebody I had watched some, but I think I know who it is, but I can't remember for sure, so I'm not going to say exactly who it was. And this was their idea. I did not take the idea. Now, I took their idea, which they later told me that I did when they seen my videos, and went further with it. And I got it to where this thing works as good as one that comes from the store. He never, I don't think, really got that far. He built the thing and never really used it, from what he told me a long time ago. And he used the regular size tips like I put in it, and I quickly realized that the flow was way too much. Even if you had one nozzle, it was way too much, and it was getting too much on there. Just a matter of like 20 bales in, and I seen the tank was just draining. And that's the thing, that whole tank will do a lot of hay, and it's only 5 gallons. If you put a regular tip on there, that tank's going to empty out in no time. I mean, it's just a fine mist that this stuff goes on at, and it's very calculated at what you need. So I hope that this will help somebody. If you watch me regularly and see this, I know there's a lot of people type in homemade hay preservative applicators, and they see that video, and then they automatically, they'll watch and skip through it a few minutes to see what I did, and then they write me the questions rather than watching the whole video and listen to everything I said. And then they'll say, well, what size is this, or what size is that, and all this other stuff. And I'm not going to give that information. I'm just not. I have my reasons for doing it. It can be done. That was the purpose of the video, is I showed you how to do it. I showed you how simple it is. You've got to go out and do the homework just like I did to get the extra stuff and to figure it out. It's not hard to figure out if you just look for. I told everybody what to look for. That was the hardest thing for me, was figuring out what to look for. And you've got to, y'all know that now, and now you can go find it, and it's a lot easier than all I went through, because I built this thing and I had the same idea everybody else did, and I just did what the other guy did, and then I realized that, well, that ain't gonna work. And then it took me probably 3 weeks to figure out everything else I needed to know to get this thing straightened out and working right. The biggest, hardest part I found was not getting the tips, because the information charts that I had, a couple people give me 2 different styles of information charts, and the information charts I had, I got these tips, and then it was basically a make or break deal, even after I had done all this and spent the money on the tips and everything else, to find these little brass pieces. That was the hardest thing out of the whole project I had, was just finding those little brass pieces. I didn't know what I was going to do, because I tried plastic wouldn't hold up because it was pressurized, and the only thing it would work was that, and I couldn't find it anywhere. And I finally lucked up one night, and I was just messing around on Amazon. I had done looked probably 100 more times, and it popped up, I think, on that little thing. It always says things you might be interested in when you're looking at stuff like that, and there it was. And I clicked on it. I was like, that's exactly what I need. And I don't know if it fate, whatever it was, and I got them and ordered them. But if you search for these on Amazon, threaded sprayer caps, I think's what I typed in, or something like that. These things generally, I looked probably a year ago, and they still had them available, and it'll pull up. Don't ask me what the number was on them. I have no idea. That's been, what, 3 or 4 years ago? I couldn't tell you. You just have to search and try to find them. But this one's based off of a Harvest Tech system, I think's what it was, which is also who makes the AGCO one. And these are actually AGCO tips that I ordered straight from my AGCO dealer to go on to this unit. So if you got a little sense, there's your little tidbit of information, which I said all that in the other video. But I know people are cheap. They want to try to do it as cheap as they possibly can, just like I do. And you're thinking, well, if I can just go get a generic, it's not going to cost me all that money. You cannot buy these. I cannot stress this enough. You cannot buy these. You cannot buy these at Tractor Supply or just anywhere. You have to go get these through a sprayer preservative applicator company and order them. So thank y'all for watching. Please comment, rate, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.